Hi, I'm Brett Ullman. Welcome to Navigating Everything, the channel where we try and help you deal with tough topics like parenting, mental health, how to be a better man, husband, boyfriend, etc. But today is my second interview with Paul Lavergne, who is a registered psychotherapist. The last video we did was looking kind of at the question that I get quite a lot from parents, looking at the idea where a parent walks up to me after a talk and says, Brett, I caught my kid looking at porn. What do I do? Today is a different conversation. Today, we're going to look at, well, again, another conversation parents asked me after my talk, but this one's a little more personal. They come up and say something like this, Brett, it's usually a wife who caught her husband looking at, or it kind of come out that he is addicted to porn. Now, I've also heard it the other way around, and I acknowledge women struggle with pornography as well, even though for me, the majority of people who've come up to me have been women talking about men. Let me just bring Paul on here. Paul, thanks for coming back on our second video. Welcome.
Hi, Brad.
And for those of you who this is your first time meeting Paul, just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Thanks so much for having me on your YouTube channel. I've been following and admiring your work for many years. I'm a registered psychotherapist in private practice in Peterborough, and I'm also an educator and a trainer. I do workshops for other therapists and travel and speak to not a ton here and there at conferences and schools, not to the degree you do. I know that's your full-time job. This is sort of my side job as opportunities come up. But I speak about the unprecedented situation of our time, which is never before in the history of the human race have so many people had so much unrestricted access to so much hardcore sexual material. So it's a great social experiment. What's going to happen? We don't know yet, but we're starting to find out. So I speak about how children and teens are impacted by this. And also about half of my clients, between 50 and 60% of my clients are people who struggle with compulsive sexual behaviors. So the more common term is sex addiction or porn addiction. I use the term compulsive sexual behaviors as an umbrella term that includes compulsive porn use, masturbation, sexting, texting, webcamming, chatting, hookups, dating sites, serial affairs, using escorts, prostitutes, massage parlors, phone sex. I think that's pretty much it. So that's what we call another day at the office around here. But I also work with a lot of partners, and I know we're going to focus today on that aspect of the whole the story, so to speak. It's not, in most cases, I don't work with a lot of young single guys or even older single guys. I work with guys in relationships, and so a big important piece of that story is the partner, whether it's someone they're married to or living common law or in a serious dating relationship. It doesn't really matter. Those people are very, very much affected by this.
Such important work. I mean, everything you talked about, we could do entire videos on that. So let's get back to kind of our topic today. So Paul, someone finds out their spouse, and this could be boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever as well, is looking at, or I guess usually could be addicted to porn. There's got to be all kinds of feelings, betrayal, other things. Where do you start with someone like this? What would you say to someone who's with you?
Yeah, so in the first session, I really just want to hear the story. I want to see what the history is, because it's not always as straightforward as you might think. Sometimes I have the partner. So in our case, we'll say the user is the guy and the partner is the woman, just for the sake of keeping it simple. But it can be the other way around. Sometimes I have the partner contact me on their own, distraught and confused and reaching out for help because they have discovered evidence of a secret sexual behavior. And they have no idea what to do or what to think about this. They have no frame of reference. And, people, especially growing up that are, say, grew up in the 80s and 90s, I was in high school in the 80s. So they didn't, it's hard to wrap their head around how technology interfaces with these behaviors now, because there's no friend, they didn't grow up with this. They didn't grow up carrying phones around with them, right? So sometimes the guy gets caught and comes in, and because she's telling him you need to go get help for this, sometimes they come in as a couple. So I want to know, first of all, where they're at in the discovery. So what is the behavior that he was doing? So let's say it was looking at pornography. So I want to know, did you just find out? Have you known for 6 months? What happened? How did you get caught? And I want to know, is this the first time, second time, third time? Because there's a big difference between someone that just got caught a week ago for the first time and someone who's gotten caught for the fourth or fifth time in the last 10 years.
I guess there's a difference too between getting caught and someone coming forward and saying, honey, I just want to let you know I have an addiction. Like there's kind of someone being forthright about the information and someone getting caught. I guess there's a difference there too.
Yeah, the difference is 5% and 95%.
Really?
Yeah, so 95% of the guys are got caught and they're in here because they're in trouble and want to save their marriage. I would say 5% or maybe even less are guys who just woke up one day and realized this is a problem. And they literally just go and tell their partner, I have a problem. It does happen, but it's about 5% of the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I start. And also I want to ascertain relationship goals, because I don't assume right off the bat that they're here to save the relationship. I used to naively think that early in my practice, and I realized that not all couples that go to marriage counseling actually want to save a relationship or work it out. There's other reasons that they come. So I want to see where they're at in terms of, are they bought into trying to understand and work through this and try to save the relationship? And I tell them, if you are, you're in for a ride and a lot of hard work and a lot of difficult emotions, because this is probably the most upsetting thing that you've ever gone through, and for the partner it often is. And this is going to be one of the hardest things that you ever do. So, yeah. So that's kind of where I start.
I think there's a book that says do hard things. I kind of just thought it's okay to do hard things.
That's a great title. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I have a money back guarantee. I tell clients, if I ever ask you to do something and it's easy, I'll give you all your money back. And I've never had a taker yet.
I had a youth pastor once. He was going to bring me in to speak, and he said, well, I don't want to address some of these topics because they're messy. And I said, well, if you're not dealing with messy, you're probably not a youth pastor. That's kind of life. Life is messy, and it's okay to deal in the mess and deal with the kind of hard things.
Well, I kind of look at myself as the guy that cleans up the messes of the porn industry, because that's really what I do. There's a guy that goes and sets off the bomb or the fire, and then there's the firefighters that come and put the fire out, and then there's the guys that come and clean up the mess and the wreckage and try to salvage something out of that. That's kind of where I come in.
I like that. So often when people are talking to me in this kind of, back and forth after one of my talks, I hear a lot of self-blame. One lady actually said to me, Brett, it's all my fault. It's my fault my husband's addicted to porn. What would you say to that?
Well, if I'm able to meet the partner right away, and I prefer that. And if I don't meet her right away, I usually try to get them in, in the first 3 or 4 sessions, because I want to hear their experience and hear what they feel and really give them some perspective and really validate what they're going through. And one of the first things I do is what I call the 3 C's. So I'll look at the partner and I'll say, I really, really want you to understand something here. The first C is you did not cause this. All right? You did not cause this. This is not your fault. And if you're a partner watching me today, please understand this is not your fault. And I've had women just break into tears hearing me say that. Because
that reminds me of, sorry to interrupt, remember Good Will Hunting? Remember in Good Will Hunting, in that, my son had to watch that for school the other day, and there's that scene.
A lot of swearing in that movie.
Yeah, there's a ton of it. That's his grade 12 lesson. But there's the scene when Robin Williams is hugging him, and he keeps saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And in the end, he breaks down. It's kind of I think it's really powerful. Sorry to interrupt. That just was something I thought about. Right.
No, and that is sort of the emotional climax of the film, when he has that breakthrough standing there in the hallway, and he says, He says the words he's always longed to hear, but no one knew to tell him. And that's
Hmm.
what happened, right? So I look right at the partner and I'll say, you didn't cause this. And what I mean by that is there's nothing you could have done or not done that would have prevented this outcome. And what I also mean is the seeds for this behavior were planted long before you met your husband in his life.
Hmm.
And what I also mean is it would not have mattered who he married, he would have done this. And I don't know a better way to articulate it's not about you. But I'll go on to explain. I don't care how skinny or large or short or tall or blonde or brunette or blue-eyed or brown-eyed or large breast or small breasted you are, any of that doesn't matter. Because, Brett, I've seen women that know their husbands watch pornography. And so they go and see what he's seeing. And they see the hypersexualized images of women that he's looking at. And they go out and get breast implants and dye their hair blonde and lose 20 pounds. And it's very sad to me that they have internalized and personalized their husband's problem instead of putting the ownership where it belongs, which is on him and his behavior. So the second C is you cannot control this. So I explain that if your husband has an addiction, it's up to him to want to recover, and he has to do the work. And there's nothing you can do to make that happen. All you can do is provide a supporting environment to allow his recovery to occur. So another way of saying that is, do you have plants in your house?
I do.
Right. So your job basically for the plant is if it likes the sun, you put it in the sun, and then you find out how much water it needs and you water it once or twice a week. And you cannot make it grow any faster than it will grow, right?
For sure,
Because
yeah.
it doesn't matter what you do. You can maybe throw a bit of fertilizer or talk to it a bit, but it'll grow at the rate it grows. That's it. You can't control the rate of the growth of the plant. It's completely outside your control, right? But partners will fall into that trap of thinking they can. So it would be like, you measure the plant every day, you check the color, you go online and look up images of other plants to see if it looks normal. You transplant it every week because maybe a bigger pot or a different soil will be good, or you try new fertilizer, or you move it around to 16 different spots in the house so it gets a different angle of sunlight. No, it won't help, right? So you cannot control his recovery. And the third thing is you cannot cure it. So you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. So there's nothing you can do to make him change. Okay. So the control is more about micromanaging the process of the change, and the realizing you can't cure it is accepting the fact that you're powerless over that person's behavior and that they alone have to do the work. So I usually start with that, and I also really give them a chance. I think we'll talk about this more in another question, but I want to give them a voice, and I find that for some partners it's really actually very difficult for them to articulate how they really feel about it. And sometimes they're scared. They're scared to say how they feel. Or if they're by their temperament are a timid or unassertive person, it's very difficult. I have to really draw it out of them for them to give words to their horror and their shock.
I think what's hard here too is that coming from the Christian community that I do, a lot of the books that talk about this, I think have done a very poor job in we actually do blame the wife.
Really? Oh,
And there's been some that I've read, and it's just these small little quick statements, and you kind of go, that's completely not okay. But we've kind of, I think in some of the books we've done that. And so I hope we more can have, I like that comment you said about giving people a voice. It's a really important thing.
Right. And just to go off what you said, Brett, there is a lot of bad advice from not just faith leaders. Let's not just pick on them. I want to pick on bad therapists too, or not bad therapists, let's say uneducated or uninformed therapists. So an example of bad advice from a faith leader would be, maybe you should have sex with your husband more, or be a little more adventurous in the bedroom, or stop saying no, do your wifely duty, and be submissive. And there's a whole, sort of spiral down that rabbit hole. And then on the other side is therapists. And I've literally had this happen many, many, many times, where couples have gone to a therapist, and, she says, I caught him watching porn again. And the therapist will say, well, why don't you just watch it with him? Or, just maybe he'll tell the guy, like, just cut back a bit, are you having enough sex, or is everything, maybe you're a bit of a prude, you need to loosen up. And this is literally traumatizing to the partner. It is so incredibly invalidating to them that there's therapists causing harm to them because they do not understand the emotional dynamics of what this does in a relationship.
I'm going to tag a video above. There's a woman named Sheila Gregoire. I don't know if you know Sheila, Paul.
Not sure.
She is a Canadian Christian blogger, but she talks about sex. And so her, like, a daily blogging, I think it's 5 days a week, but she has a great podcast as well. It's called To Love, Honor, and Vacuum. Someone once said, it sounds like a mommy blog. I'm like, this is not a mommy blog. Like, it's not. These are really important conversations that the church often hasn't had. And so I'll tag that above so people can see it. So what should, like, take the broken person in front of you. What should someone do if they catch their spouse, or if their spouse is watching porn? What should they do?
Okay. So once I've clarified that this is a problem, okay, because there are scenarios I've come across where it's not necessarily problematic for either partner. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So I've come across couples where, for example, she has no interest in having sex with him for whatever reason. And so she knows that he watches porn every day, let's say, for a sexual release. So as long as he watches porn for a sexual release and doesn't bother her for sex, she's happy, and they're both happy with that. So it's a counterintuitive sort of situation. And I've learned, in my first year, let's say, of being in private practice, I would have naively jumped in and told them about how that's terrible, and that's not a good system, and that's not going to build intimacy and connection and trust and all that sort of stuff. But I've learned since then, like, no, that's their system and it works for them, and I'm not going to ever change it, right? Now, it's not a long-term recipe for intimacy or success, and that couple I'm actually thinking about, they're not even together anymore. But let's say that a couple comes in and she has found out that he watches porn and she's not okay with it. So the first thing I would say to her is, it's absolutely okay for you to have boundaries in your relationship about pornography. Just like you would have boundaries in your relationship about lying, or, I don't want you bringing meth or cocaine into the house and just getting high in front of the kids. That's reasonable, right?
Very.
Okay. So I would really validate for the partner that if you want a porn-free marriage, then you have the right to say that you want a porn-free marriage. Because my hunch is, when you said your wedding vows to each other, you didn't agree to share your bed with 10,000 other naked women, did you? And she'll go, no, of course not. I said, exactly. And I tell a story sometimes about a client who, this was a younger couple, and after many, many, many months of trying to communicate to the partner that it was upsetting and hurtful to his wife for her to find pictures of naked women on his phone, I said, well, he doesn't get it, okay? let's try this. And so I said, go home and print out a bunch of pictures, hot pictures of guys off the internet. Nothing naked, just shirtless guys with six packs, right? And print off a few and stick them up in your bedroom. And when he comes home, this is what I want you to say. So I told her what to say. So that week she does it. I didn't think she'd actually do it, Brett. Like I was shocked. Like we had a great laugh, but I was really shocked by this. But she's a little fireball. She's really spunky, you know. And so she came home. Her husband walked in and said, "What's that?" "Oh, just some hot guys I like, and you know, I like to pleasure myself while I'm looking at them. And if you're not available to have sex, but don't worry, you know, it's not like I'm actually having sex with a real guy. It's just all in my head, just fantasizing about having sex with those hot guys, right? Because they're way hotter than you are." Well, he freaks, right? And then she said, "Well, you know how you feel right now? That's exactly how I feel every time I see pictures of women on your phone." So it's like, you know, until you turn it around, like a lot of guys don't get it. It's such a double standard, right? Because it's so normalized. It's so normalized. But if you need to say to your husband, "I don't want porn in my marriage," or "I don't want to share you with the object world of fantasy sex," then you go ahead and say that. Okay? Now, this isn't, if you look at porn, I'm divorcing you. I didn't say that. This is setting boundaries, right? So I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with you masturbating to pornography while you're married to me any more than I'm okay with you coming in and doing a line of cocaine in front of the kids.
What's interesting with this whole topic is I think that couples too often try to do this on their own, when I think this is a really important place for counselors, therapists, psychotherapists. Like, this is where I think your field really shines in being able to journey through this with people, because I think you need that third non-partisan, sorry to bring politics, like, you know what I mean? Like, because I think too often, like when you talked about for the woman to put those pictures up, that's something that usually a guy, you know, it might take something like that for the guy to actually go, "Oh, you're right. This is not like," because I don't think we're not talking about this, like whether church world or not, we're not talking about this conversation. We have an over-sexualized world with no conversation on the consequences. And a lot of times it's the wives who kind of have this, they're the ones who get hit with this, but they don't know what to do. Yeah. So if this is an addiction, how can a spouse support their other half in this journey?
Right. So one of the first things I'll do when meeting with a guy is actually figure out if it's an addiction. And I would say almost, I don't think really anyone that's ever come in my office didn't meet the criteria. But I don't want to, you know, I've never told anyone in my life they're a porn addict, Brett, or a sex addict. I just ask them the questions and I go by what they tell me. So if you're watching or your partner's watching, here's basically how it goes. Question one, have you tried to cut back or stop your behavior and failed to do so? Yes. Number two is, do you continue your behavior despite negative consequences? Yes. Number three, is there tolerance and escalation in your behavior? So do you go from softer to harder porn? Do you go from once a week to once a day? You know, it's more quantity or more graphic content that leads to it. And then if you're someone that's moved from porn to basically any other behavior involving direct contact with another person, like webcamming or texting or chatting or things like that, that's a form of escalation as well. And that's it. So if it's yes to those questions, it meets the criteria. And that's anything, Brett. That's drugs, alcohol, porn, shopping, gambling. It's really all the same. There's some small differences, but they're basically all the same. So once we establish that, yeah, this is a problem, and you know, I meet people like at different stages in the process. Like there's some people that have, you know, maybe it was 2 or 3 months ago that it was, you know, what I call D-Day, like the discovery day. And they've done some research, and maybe he's watched a few videos, or he's maybe even gone out and they bought a book and they're reading about this. And so sometimes they come in and he's just like, you know, yeah, like I have a problem. I have a porn addiction. I never knew that was a thing, and never knew you could be addicted to porn. But I've been researching it, and I need to get some help. And that's great. Like, that's a great starting point for me, because I don't have to really, spend time kind of waiting for them to sort of, come around to accept the fact that they have a compulsive sexual behavior. So, what was the original question?
Uh, just about how do you support your spouse?
Oh, okay. So, how does the partner support the recovering spouse?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
you kind of went into a bit of that.
Right. Well, so one of the best ways, actually, and I just thought of this, that the partner can support the spouse is go learn about what's going on.
Hmm.
Okay. Like, go, like, I get it. 99% of the lay people out there in the world don't know anything about this. Because why would you? Right. So go learn. Like, Brett's got some videos. I got some videos. There's lots of stuff out there. Just Google, what is sex addiction, and you'll get all kinds of great articles out there that'll lay it out, and they're all consistent. Basically, they all kind of say the same thing. So go learn about it. Like, educate yourself and realize that, like, this is a real thing. And then the other thing you can do to support your spouse is to um, give them time and space to also sort out what their recovery looks like on their end.
Hmm.
Okay. Because as much as there's a lot coming at you as a partner, there's a lot coming at him too. And there's a tremendous amount of shame and guilt and remorse. And you see a lot of comorbidity with depression, with sexual addiction, and anxiety, and other issues. And there may be even other addictions, or maybe marijuana or cocaine or alcohol. So, again, it really depends on the case. There's a lot of variety there, but he's got a lot coming at him too. So he needs some time and space to figure things out and start to engage in the recovery process. And this is going to be a 1 to 2 year journey, okay, before his recovery gets traction. You see long term change setting in, and you think that one day maybe you can trust him again. And I tell couples, as a rule of thumb, the rule of thumb is 6 months before making a decision about the relationship. Okay.
I like that.
So if you just say D-Day was last week, okay, so you just found out last week that he's been looking at porn. He's been looking at porn for the whole marriage. It's escalated to chatting with girls online and webcamming, and you just found that out last week. You can get divorced anytime, all right? So don't rush into it now, because it will be all emotion. And you need it to be based on other things besides the emotion of the moment. All right. There have been situations where I've seen the wife catch the husband. It was straight to the divorce court. No, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. No second chances. I never met her. She had no interest in seeing me. She had no interest in doing her own recovery. And it was basically, my guess is, it was basically a bad marriage to begin with, and it was her excuse to get out. So she saw her excuse and she got out of it. And that has happened. But that's generally not how it plays out. So I tell people, wait 6 months. Okay. And for the partners, I gave you the 3 C's. Here's the 2 B's: believe, behavior. Okay. So one of the most common questions I get from partners is, how do I know that he's going to change? And I say, that is a great question. But I'll tell you, if he's taking this seriously and he wants to change and he wants to quit porn and break his addiction and earn your trust and respect back, there's a process that he has to go through that consists of observable behaviors. The observable behaviors are going to therapy or coaching, joining a support group, either an online group, a faith-based group, a 12-step group, whatever. Accountability. He's doing his homework. He's doing his reading. Okay. And he's keeping his bottom lines. So we call it sober, he's sober. So if your bottom lines are no porn, no masturbation, no chatting with girls, then you don't do that. And you should also see a gradual shift in his attitude, becoming more softer, more humble, more open, taking more ownership. Okay. So those are the behaviors. If you don't see those behaviors, there's no recovery. If you do see those behaviors, there is recovery.
It's interesting. I'm reminded of the quote by Frederick Douglass, who said it's easier, I think the word is teach or equip young children than to repair broken men.
Mm.
And what I wish is there was more. There was a church a couple of years ago that had me in on a Sunday morning to speak on pornography. Talk about unorthodox. And that day, they actually addressed pornography from kids ministries, senior high, junior high, senior high, young adult, and adult. And it was all
Wow.
age appropriate. Every parent knew what was coming. And it was just this, and it was that idea of let's equip before people are in your office.
Yeah.
Let's equip before we're like, oh, like marriages are being affected or kids are into addiction and stuff. And I really love that idea of my favorite age to speak to is the younger and younger kids. And I'm not talking like 5 and 6 year olds. I'm just saying, give me a junior high or a high school kid any day.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Before we hit the brokenness.
Right.
So I want to switch a little bit to a kind of a conversational trauma right now. I've heard that a spouse discovering this like a secret sexual behavior. I really like that. I haven't heard that before. But that term you used can actually be very traumatic and even create like PTSD. Can you comment on that? What are your thoughts?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Brett. So for many years in the world of therapy, we use, with treating addiction, we use the addict and the co-addict model. And this comes from AA going back 80 years. So what you would find is, and actually this goes all the way back to the beginning of AA, when Bill W. started having AA meetings. Bill W. and Dr. Bob founded AA. He started having meetings in his kitchen with the alcoholics. And his wife would meet with the wives, because they'd come along, probably to make sure their husbands were showing up. And they'd all meet in the living room and have tea. And she started to realize they all started to show similar patterns of behavior as well. And over time, we came to label this as the co-addict. So your husband's the addict and you're the co-addict, and you were enabling his behavior. So examples of enabling his behavior are calling into work sick for him because he's hungover, getting him off to bed because he can't walk on his own, cleaning up his messes when he throws up on the floor, pees himself, hiding the bottles that he's hiding, and on and on and on like this, right? And so what happened, and this happens, and so you have this really sort of dysfunctional system where the addict is acting out and engaging in the behavior, and in order to basically survive and cope, and a lot of times keep the family together, the partner has developed equally dysfunctional behaviors to coexist in this ecosystem of dysfunctionality. Okay, but there's a couple of ways that doesn't work when dealing with sex addiction. So one, I've never yet come across a woman who called in for her husband, called in sick because he was up all night watching pornography. She's not enabling him in that way. I've never yet met a partner who called in for her husband sick because he was out on a bender all night with prostitutes doing blow. Okay, it's like it just doesn't happen. And right, so, and the other thing is, it's easy to blame a partner when you use a co-addict model. Okay, so they come in, I'm devastated, my wife's been chatting with teenage girls on webcams, and then you look at her and go, oh, well, what are you doing to enable that? No. No, that doesn't work, because they're not doing anything to enable that, right? So over time, and about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a new model started to sort of come up, and this is kind of what I learned out of my mentor, Doug Weiss, was the trauma model. And the trauma model fits very well because a lot of betrayed partners literally show signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so after D-Day, after they discover the behavior, they start to show signs of being traumatized. And some of the things that women have told me are After they find out, they have incredible anxiety, chronic. They have depression. They can't sleep. They have digestive problems, female problems, physical problems. There's chronic ruminating and thinking about what he did. They're chronically worrying. What else is there? What don't I know? Is there more? Is there more? They start searching for evidence. Okay. I've talked to women who have been up till 2 o'clock in the morning going over phone records over the last 5 years. So imagine how driven you must be to print off 5 years of phone records and go over them line by line, marking out what each one is, who the call was to, how long it lasted. Then you see a number that you don't know, so you call it. And oh, it's an escort agency. Oh, it's a massage parlor. Oh, it's right. And this goes on for months and months and months. Checking phone history, checking computer history. I've had partners bring their husband's devices into a tech expert. So I don't know who you use there. I got a guy I use. There's different places that are franchised, but they can, because nothing's ever really deleted, right? So they have ways of finding it. So they'll bring the whole laptop in and go, I think my husband's looking at porn. I need you to find out what he is, what he's looking at. They put tracking devices on the cars and trucks without telling them. They put tracking devices on the phone. They will follow him when he goes out. He says, hey, I'm just running down to the Lions Club to shoot some pool with the boys. She'll follow him in the car to make sure he's actually going there.
Do you know what this reminds me of? In my parenting talks, I talk about how parents overfunction and kids then in turn underfunction.
Yeah.
And I see that here where the spouse is now overfunctioning. Like the spouse is now doing what the other person should do, but because they're overfunctioning, the person, the addict, isn't functioning and isn't bringing up their game the same way. It's interesting, kind of the tie-ins there.
Yeah, no, that is a great way to look at it. I'm going to use it. Can I steal that, Brett?
You can. I stole it from someone else, so it's all good.
We all steal from each other, right? Fits of rage, Brett, violence, throwing things, screaming, threatening. I had one lady that came home, found her husband looking at porn on the laptop, grabbed a hatchet, smashed the laptop with the hatchet, threw it out the second-story window, and then chased him with the hatchet.
Wow.
And then he had to call the police. And you could listen to this and go, oh wow, that crazy. What a crazy lady. No, that's called traumatized lady. Okay. And then the classic symptoms of PTSD, which are hypervigilance and hyperarousal, flashbacks, and flooding. And I see all of these things in partners. Okay, so hypervigilance means when you're traumatized, it affects you on a neurological level, affects your nervous system. And it's sort of like that part of your brain that looks for dangers, kind of vibrating on a higher frequency. And it controls, its job is to keep you alive, and it controls the fight, flight, or freeze response. So what happens is then when you've been betrayed, and so this whole cluster of symptoms I described is referred to as betrayal trauma by therapists. We call this betrayal trauma. So the partner has experienced betrayal trauma. So they're hypervigilant. So I've heard of stories where they'll be going out in public, and if he even looks in the direction of a female, then obviously he's planning to have sex with her. And it could literally just be his head just randomly turned in the direction at the same time that this person walked by, and he wasn't even looking at her. Okay? So she sees danger where there's no danger. Hypervigilance means also like she walks in the room and sees him on the computer, and he's just looking up, the sports score or something, but she literally goes right to, he must be chatting with a girl on a webcam. That's the first thought that comes into her mind, right? Which leads to hyperarousal. And hyperarousal is now the fight, flight, or freeze has kicked in. So there's a bit of an adrenaline spike, and you're going to either attack. Okay, so because you're triggered, you're going to attack him, you're going to freeze, or you're going to shut down and run away. And probably the most common response is to attack. When she attacks, let me just finish this with this, and then he becomes angry and defensive because he is, after all, just looking at the sports scores, and he doesn't understand. See, I educate the guys on all of this because they need to understand what's going on in her head. But if he becomes defensive or angry, her adrenaline spikes and she becomes overwhelmed with anxiety, and now she floods. And the flooding is where the limbic brain takes over. It's total survival mode. And this is where things really get ugly, or people say and do things that they regret. And if that continues and they don't actually get help, like someone, if there's no one to come in and sort of explain to them what's going on and help them navigate that, it will end up blowing up the relationship.
It's interesting, let's use the term collateral damage. Because and I mean, we're talking often the husband and wife, and it could be the other way around, but so the wife catches her husband, so now she's in therapy with him and her, dealing with marital stuff. But on top of that, she's going to have to deal with more work to deal with the trauma, like just more collateral damage. I guess, yeah. So here's the thing I think of with this. So much we're talking about is negative, and it is. There's lots of destruction, lots of pain. For a spouse, is there hope? Have you seen couples that have walked through this kind of conversation successfully?
Absolutely. I've worked with couples where he acted out with so many people. He had to do a spreadsheet for me to document it all. And I'm talking 60 sexual partners over a 20-year period. And wow. As far as I know, they're still together. So there's at that extreme. And then the other client I shared where all he did is look at pornography, and I'm not minimizing, okay? But the only behavior of a sexual nature that he engaged in was looking at pornography and not telling the wife. And that marriage was over. Okay, so there's your two extremes.
Yeah.
So most of the couples I work with, and people always ask me this, like, what's the success rate or whatever, and to give a meaningful answer, there's actually a lot of work that needs to go into do proper research onto that, because how do you define success, for example, right? But it's something I'll do one day when I have more time, because I'm curious, right? But I would say most of the couples that engage in the process that I work with and are both committed to doing the work of recovery are successful and move through this successfully. But some don't.
And that's a good thing for people to hear. But it means for both people doing the work.
Yeah.
And it's not easy work.
Well, and just like you also made me think, Brett, when you mentioned about the collateral damage, you have a partner who's sitting there going, I'm just going along in my life and trying to be a good wife and a good mother and do my job. And then all of a sudden this blows up. And now I got to go to therapy too. I got to read these books. I got to go see a coach. I got to listen to these videos with you. Like, why should I have to do that?
Yeah.
And it's a legitimate complaint. But my response is this. Let's say you're crossing the road one day, minding your own business, and you get hit by a car, a distracted driver, okay, and he leaves you lying there. You have a choice. You can acknowledge that life is unfair and sometimes capricious and difficult, and it appears random, and take responsibility for your healing, or you can lie in the middle of the road playing a victim and crying about how hurt you are. Or you can get someone to call 911, get in the ambulance, go to the doctor, get the treatment, go to physio, get rehab. That all sucks. It all sucks. But what else are you going to do? Lie in the road and bleed out? And that might sound harsh, Brett, but I'm really not trying to sound harsh, because those are the relationships that don't make it, is when the partner will take no, when I see the partner take no responsibility for their own healing, it's very, very unlikely the relationship survives. Because I'll have guys that'll be clean and sober for, let's say, a year. Bottom lines are clean for a year, going to group, going to therapy, investing thousands of dollars in their healing and their recovery. And they go home and all they hear is, "You effing lying piece of crap. You know, I can't believe I married you. How could you do this to me? I'll never trust you again. You're probably out, da, 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 da." And this is what they're going home to every day, because she's stuck. And I'm not blaming partners here. Did we freeze? I froze on my end. So I'll just pick it up and edit it later. So they're stuck. And I'm not blaming the partner. Please hear me on this. They're stuck in their trauma, though. And some people can't resist the urge to play the victim and just blame, blame, blame. And go ahead if you want to do that, but that's not the way to get out of this situation and be healed. Did you ask for this? Absolutely not. Did you deserve it? No. Is life fair? Heck no.
In my mental health talk, I use the term, like, for depression. Have you heard the analogy of you're stuck in a hole and you can't get out? But this kind of applies for the same with this, is when people make the hole their home. When they're stuck in their trauma and they're not moving forward.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting with collateral damage, because it's not just the spouse, children. Like, I speak to teens a lot, and the number of times I hear, like, you know, my dad's a porn addict, or my dad cheated on my mom. There's got to be statistics that talk about, if, you know, kind of like if there's more, if your parents are divorced, there's a greater chance of you being divorced. It's not guaranteed, but the same with addictions and things. And then even those of us in leadership, I mean, you know, looking at like Carl Lenz from Hillsong, had an affair, affects his wife, affects his, I think it's 3 children. But what about the thousands of people at the church that look up to someone, that are devastated by this? Like, there's just this wave, a tsunami of damage that goes through everything. So I think these are really, really big conversations. If someone wanted some book suggestions, do you have a couple for this?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're a partner, go out and buy Your Sexually Addicted Spouse. Okay? Marsha Means, Barbara Steffens. Just Google Your Sexually Addicted Spouse. Help Her Heal is for the addict in recovery to build the empathy for his wife, to relate to her in a way that's going to help her heart heal from trauma. Couple's Guide to Sex Addiction. Google that, Couple's Guide to Sex Addiction. And then you can also get my ebook, The Damage Control Protocol, which I wrote for couples that just had a D-Day and they're not sure what to do. And there's just 100 ways you can make it worse. And I want couples to know that, you know, there's a lot of ways to not make it worse. And sometimes the best strategy, Brett, is just don't make it any worse than it already is, which might not sound like a great strategy, but it is a great strategy sometimes. So that's where I would start. And then, you know, when you go on Amazon and you type in, so if you type in Your Sexually Addicted Spouse on Amazon, you know, it'll recommend stuff, right? Brett's book, Parenting, Navigating Everything, right? Parenting. Yeah. Is a good place to start, because I know you talk, but that's more of a broad overview. So for this specific issue, the books that I mentioned, and any others, Brett, that you've come across, I know you read a ton. So
I'm going to make sure I'll tag them all with Amazon links in the bottom for everyone to go look at later. So much good conversation for hurting people today. And what I like is that we often brought this back to a bit of hope. Paul, you and I are going to do one more video in this series, and we're going to direct it right at people who are struggling themselves with pornography. Could be a kid, could be the youngest I've dealt with is probably a 12-year-old, and the oldest is in their 90s. This is men and women, like all of us, faith-based, not. And so we'll do that next time. Paul, tell people where they can find you if they want to contact you.
Right. So my email is turningpoint4me@gmail.com. call me at 705-868-8896 or my website, turningpointforme.com.
Awesome. I'll make sure I tag that in the description below as well. Paul, thank you for being with us today. Great conversation. For everyone who joined us, thanks for being part of this. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
My pleasure, Brett. Thanks.
See you.